Salomo, perhaps before we get into the impact that the violence and the riots might have on the Namibian economy, perhaps you can just tell us a bit about the trade relations between Namibia and South Africa. I understand it's regarded as our most important trade partner.
Yes, so let me give you a bit of perspective, right? So what has happened is, if you look at our trade figures for May, the total trade balance was around 14 billion, right? Our South Africa account for almost 60% of our total trade activity. On the export side, it accounts for almost 15%. On the import side, it accounts for almost 43%. And that's a huge number. And if you consider that the majority of the goods and services that we import essentially move on road, right? And that's 70% of everything that we import come on road. And on road, it means it comes through the road infrastructure all the way from South Africa. In terms of the impact and in terms of our, or rather the trade relations between Namibia and South Africa, it goes without saying. I mean, we are pegged to the rand. We get the majority of our soft commodities from South Africa. The trade figures tells us that 60% of total trade is accounted for by South Africa, of which almost 40% thereof is what we import.
All right, Salomo. Now, in his speech this week, as he called for calm, the president of South Africa also raised alarm and said that if the situation continues or persists, it could lead to food shortages. Now, could such a challenge flow over to Namibia? I mean, and what about essentials, such as medicine? What could this mean for Namibia?
The fact of the matter is that if you're having challenges with, say, an oxygen through Afrox, you're already running the risk of compromising patients that are currently in hospital. Let alone our supplies, our medical supplies, be it immune boosters. Remember that last year when everyone was stocking up on immune boosters, we ran out in terms of local supply. And again, it was precisely on the back that a supply disruption that was caused by high demand in South Africa meant that we could not access what we would usually access. And now it's actually a double whammy. On the one side, you've got demand for these goods because of COVID in terms of becoming complementary goods, be it immune boosters, be it any other flu-related medicine. And then what you have is that now, on top of that, you've got the little that was actually moving in is also now being curtailed. So we are really in a very difficult situation, and it could compromise every sort of efforts that have gone towards fighting the pandemic, and also the general livelihood of households in Namibia.
One can say that this is certainly not the first time that there's a looting spree going on in South Africa, but this time around we are seeing that it's been almost over a week now. I mean, what does this mean in terms of a government now bringing in the army and still having a challenge in terms of quelling the situation or the violence in that country? What could that mean?
And look, it's quite worrying because remember that South Africa is in level 4, right? They've got what they call adjusted level 4 lockdown guidelines.
Yes.
Their highest lockdown is level 5, right? Which to us would be our level 1. Our total lockdown, right? So they are essentially one step away from a total shutdown, right? So having people on the streets at this point is already breaking the law, at a COVID situation. So one would have wanted to see the state sort of react or respect or make sure there's an enforcement on the guidelines that they put forward to protect people or to sort of stem the tide against the pandemic. Now, this does not happen because you see people that are on the streets that should not be on the street because of the lockdown regulations that have been implemented. Now, on top of that, it sort of now spills into what one would want to almost refer to a certain level of criminality, where criminal elements are essentially looting. And I think if you see the visuals, at some point you could see that the police was essentially bystanders. They were not getting involved. And it's going for 2 weeks in terms of what's happening now. I think there was an announcement on Monday or Tuesday from the South African president where he indicated that the army will be deployed. We did see presence in KZN over the past 2 days, but the whole thing is so sporadic. In terms of managing it, it's becoming a challenge. But one would want to believe that the state has sufficient capacity to be able to deal with this sort of thing.